The first thing I heard inside the cabin was the sound of footsteps that weren't mine, slow, steady, and confident, echoing from the back hallway like someone was already living here. I froze, hands still on the old brass doorknob. The air smelled of pine, dust, and something faintly metallic, like rain on metal. A storm was rolling over the ridge, rumbling above the trees, and the cabin felt like it had been waiting for me, patient, dark, and unsettled. This place was supposed to be my fresh start. A foreclosed fixer-upper in a mountain HOA community called Cedar Valley Ridge. Cheap. Quiet. Clean paperwork, all verified by the bank. But footsteps meant somebody disagreed. I set my duffel bag down quietly and moved toward the sound. The hall was narrow, wood-paneled, the floorboards creaking under my weight. A shadow moved at the far end, then a woman stepped out from the last bedroom as if she'd been inspecting the place. She didn't flinch. Didn't apologize. Didn't even seem surprised to see me. "Can I help you?" I asked. Her eyes were sharp, icy blue and unblinking. She wore a red fleece vest, manicured nails, and a confident smirk that said this wasn't her first confrontation. "I'm Marcia Daly," she said. "I'm the HOA president." She said president the way people say owner. "This cabin isn't available," she continued. "It's already spoken for." I held up the key the bank gave me. "It was foreclosed months ago. I bought it last week." Marcia smiled in a slow, patronizing way. "You bought a mistake. This cabin belongs to me." Lightning flashed behind her through the bedroom window. For a second her silhouette flickered like something out of a photograph, sharp edges, hard lines. She stepped toward me with a kind of practiced authority. "You can bring your paperwork to the HOA office tomorrow," she said. "I'll review it. For now, I need you to leave." I blinked at her. "Leave my own property?" She sighed like I was inconveniencing her. "I don't want this to get complicated. I already have plans for this place." Her tone told me those plans weren't legal. I swallowed back irritation. "Ma'am, the sale is final. I'm staying." Her expression flickered, displeasure, frustration, but then she smoothed it away. "Have it your way. But just know, around here, nothing happens without HOA approval. And I don't approve of you." She brushed past me, not touching me but close enough that her perfume lingered at stale lavender and something chemical. She stepped onto the porch, rain beginning to pepper her vest, then turned back. "You won't last here," she said calmly. "No one ever does." Then she walked off toward a black SUV parked at the end of the gravel path. She didn't look back. Didn't hurry. Like she owned every inch of land my boots stood on. The storm cracked open above the trees as I shut the cabin door. It slammed harder than I meant, echoing through the empty rooms. The cabin wasn't big. A living room with a stone fireplace, a small kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and a loft. Old wood everywhere, dark, scratched, but solid. The kind of place you could fix with your own hands. But as I walked through with my flashlight, I noticed things. Cabinets opened. Windows cracked open despite the cold. A bedroom closet door slightly ajar, with no dust on the floorboards, even though the bank claimed the place had been empty for 10 months. Someone had been staying here. Maybe recently. Maybe today. The storm intensified, shaking the roof. Rain hammered the windows. I locked every door and window, double-checking them one by one. That's when I heard it. A faint scraping noise above me. The loft. My heart kicked hard but steady, fear sharpened with adrenaline. I grabbed the flashlight and moved up the narrow stairs. The wood groaned under each step. "Hello?" I called softly. No answer. Just the storm outside. When I reached the top, the loft was empty. But not untouched. A mug sat on the small table by the window. Still warm. My pulse thudded. Whoever had been here wasn't Marcia, they left just minutes ago. I scanned the room again and found something tucked behind a stack of old photo frames, a small HOA envelope, unsealed, addressed to the previous owner, whose name had been scribbled out violently with black marker. Inside was a handwritten note. "You can't walk away from us. Not after what you did." The handwriting was sharp, angry, and rushed. I had no idea what it meant, but it explained one thing. The previous owner didn't leave willingly. I looked out the loft window. Down the hill, through the rain, was a row of houses, lights on, silhouettes moving behind curtains. Watching? Maybe. I went downstairs, turned on a single lamp, and sat at the dusty kitchen table. My phone buzzed, an email receipt from the bank confirming the purchase. The official deed. Everything legal. Yet the HOA president had walked through my cabin like she had keys to every door in the community. Lightning flashed again. And that's when I noticed the cabin door lock. It was turned outward. Unlocked. I had locked it 30 minutes ago. Someone had come inside during the storm. A cold rush went through my chest. I stepped back slowly, listening, scanning the dark corners of the house. No footsteps. No breathing. But the air felt wrong, heavy, disturbed, carrying the faint scent of wet earth. Marcia's warning replayed in my head. "You won't last here." Maybe she wasn't threatening me. Maybe she was stating a fact. Or a rule. One someone else in Cedar Valley Ridge was already enforcing. The storm eased by morning, but the unease inside the cabin hadn't. I barely slept. Every creak of the floorboards felt intentional, like the house was adjusting to someone who didn't belong. Coffee helped. Sort of. What didn't help was the muddy footprint by the back door. It wasn't mine. My boots were clean, untouched since last night. This footprint was smaller, with a tread pattern I didn't recognize, pressed into the wood like someone had stepped inside and then carefully wiped the rest of the mud away. Someone wanted me to know they entered. Someone also wanted me to know they could have erased all evidence, but chose not to. A message. The HOA office sat at the center of Cedar Valley Ridge, too polished, too clean, too perfect for a backwoods mountain community. White siding, black shutters, trimmed hedges, fresh mulch. A small bell jingled when I walked in. The inside was even worse. Fake smiles. Soft classical music. One wall plastered with community values, HOA commitments, and a giant photo of the board members. Front and center, Marcia Daly. She looked 10 years younger in the picture. Happier. Less sharpened. A receptionist glanced up at me. Her name tag said Lydia. She had nervous eyes that darted between me and the large office door in the back. "Hi," she said, tightening her lips. "You must be the new owner of cabin lot 7? My stomach stiffened. Word travels fast. In Cedar Valley Ridge, she whispered, everything travels fast. Before I could respond, the back office door opened and Marcia stepped out wearing the same cold smile from last night. "Well," she said, "you brought your paperwork." Good. I hadn't even said why I was here. She motioned to her glass-walled office. I followed, aware of Lydia's anxious stare following us. Once inside, Marcia closed the door and sat at her desk. "Let's see the deed," she said. I placed the folder on her desk. She didn't look at it right away. Instead, she looked at me, studying me, dissecting me. "You understand," she said softly, "that Cedar Valley Ridge is selective. I bought a foreclosed property. Legally. That's not what I meant." Her voice was almost a hiss. "People move here when they want to disappear. Be private. Not when they want to dig into things." "Dig into what?" Her eyes hardened. History. There it was. The crack. The thing she didn't want me touching. I pushed the deed toward her. "This is official. My name is on it." Marcia finally opened the folder, flipping through the documents. Lightning wasn't flashing now, but her eyes were sharp, angry. "This shouldn't have been sold," she muttered. "It was. Not to you. She stood abruptly, pacing behind the desk. You don't understand what that cabin is, she said, more to herself than to me. What it meant. What it contains. Then maybe explain. No, she snapped the folder shut. Leave the cabin. I'll reimburse you personally. I laughed. You think this is about money? It's always about money, she said coldly. Or survival. I leaned closer. Why did the previous owner leave? She froze. Dead still. Her jaw clenched once. Then she lied. He moved. I dropped the envelope I'd found in the loft onto her desk. Funny, I said, because this letter doesn't sound like he moved. It sounds like he ran. Her face drained. A single beat of silence. Then she whispered, Where did you find that? In the cabin. Where he left it. Marcia's eyes flicked to the office door, checking if anyone was listening. Listen carefully, she murmured, voice tight. Some people here are not who they claim to be. Some aren't owners at all. They don't follow rules. They don't obey laws. They only honor deals. She leaned in. Deals your cabin broke. My cabin? No. The man before you. My stomach twisted. What deal? I asked. But Marcia shut down instantly like she'd said too much. I can't help you, she said, voice clipped. But I'm warning you, you need to leave before you become part of his problem. The way she said his told me she wasn't talking about the previous owner. There was someone else. Someone above her. Someone she feared. I left the office with more questions than answers. Lydia called out softly as I reached the door. Hey, she whispered urgently, don't go to the cabin alone tonight. Not if the lights go out. I turned. Why? Because he comes back when it's dark. Who? Her lips trembled. She glanced toward Marcia's office and leaned closer. The one who thinks the cabin is still his. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. Who exactly? The office door creaked open. Lydia snapped upright, silent. Marcia stepped out, watching us with cold suspicion. I left before she could start another confrontation. Back at the cabin, the air felt different, colder, heavier. As I stepped inside, something crunched beneath my boot. Glass. The coffee mug from the loft lay shattered across the living room floor. But what froze my blood wasn't the mug. It was the message carved into the wooden floorboards beneath it. Get out. Fresh. Jagged. Carved with force. And next to it, a second smaller footprint. The same tread pattern as the one by the back door. Someone had been inside again. Bold. Confident. Untouched by locks or daylight. I knelt beside the carving, running my fingers lightly over the splintered wood. This wasn't vandalism. It was a warning. A countdown. One the previous owner ignored until he vanished. And now it was meant for me. By the time I walked into the Cedar Valley Ridge Community Hall, the evening meeting was already in motion, neighbors murmuring in tight circles, the smell of coffee and wet jackets filling the wooden room. Every head turned when the door shut behind me. The HOA president, Marcia Daly, stood at the front, dressed like she'd stepped out of a political campaign photo, neat blazer, perfect hair, confident smile. The smile dropped the second she saw me. Well, she said, voice cool. Look who decided to join us. Dozens of eyes drifted my way. Some curious. Some cold. Some scared. I cleared my throat. I'm the new owner of Cabin 12. A ripple of whispers. Marcia folded her arms. Temporarily. I walked toward the front, my boots echoing across the hardwood. No. Permanently. Her jaw tightened, but she masked it with a polite laugh. This meeting, she said, is actually about that cabin. There's been confusion. A man in the back muttered, more like lies. Marcia shot him a dangerous glare, then refocused on me. Residents, she announced, I need to explain something. Cabin 12 was repossessed in error. The previous owner, she paused, choosing her words, had an arrangement with the HOA. A private one. The room quieted. Everyone knew that meant secret. I pulled a folder from my backpack and held it up. And yet the bank has official documents showing no agreements, no liens, and no claims. The cabin was legally foreclosed. Legally sold. And legally mine. I opened the folder and laid down the receipts, deed, and transfer papers on the front table. Marcia didn't look at them. She didn't dare. That paperwork doesn't tell the whole story, she said. I lifted my phone. That's why I brought this. A digital photo appeared on the screen, the note I found in the cabin, the one addressed to the previous owner. You can't walk away from us. Not after what you did. Gasps. Someone whispered, I knew it. Another, he tried to leave. Marcia's voice snapped like a whip. That is private HOA correspondence. You stole it. You left it in my loft, I shot back. Her composure cracked for a split second, fear or fury, I couldn't tell. The room buzzed louder now. Questions flying. What did he do? Why didn't you tell us? Marcia, what's going on? She slammed her gavel down. Enough. The crowd jumped. Her voice dropped into something cold and tight. You all need to understand something. That cabin, she pointed directly at me, is connected to a matter of community safety. The previous owner jeopardized everything we built here. Everything we protect. Protect? The words slid wrong. What exactly, I asked, was he trying to escape? Her eyes locked onto mine, ice cold and trembling with anger. He betrayed us. A murmur crept across the hall. By selling? I said. Or by knowing something he wasn't supposed to? She stepped closer. Too close. Some places require order. This community is one of them. Order, I said slowly, or control. She smiled then, sharp, cruel. Whatever it takes. That was her slip. The room erupted. People shouted at her. At me. At each other. Voices overlapped. You threatened him, didn't you? You can't override property law. You hid something from us. What aren't you telling us? Marcia's face reddened. She raised the gavel again, but this time, no one fell silent. I raised my phone higher. And there's one more thing. The room quieted on its own. I tapped the screen and played the audio recording I captured earlier from the night someone snuck into my cabin. A faint door creak. A whisper. A voice. Marcia's voice. We can't let him keep it, the cabin cannot leave the circle. Someone gasped. Another screamed, she admitted it. Marcia leapt forward. That's fabricated. But panic flickered in her eyes, the first real crack. I stepped back, letting the recording finish. If he won't hand it over, we'll take it. Chaos. People shouted. Someone called her a fraud. A woman grabbed her husband's arm, whispering frantically, this is what they did to the last owner. Marcia's composure shattered. She slammed her fist onto the table, sending papers flying. You all think you know what's happening, she screamed. None of you understand the danger that cabin brings to this community. The hall went silent. Her chest rose and fell fast. Rage. Fear. Panic. I spoke quietly. Then explain it. Her voice dropped to a trembling whisper. The man who lived there, he found something he shouldn't have. He tried to warn people. And when we refused, he tried to expose us. So you forced him out, I said. No, she said, eyes narrowing. We protected ourselves. A cold chill spread through the room. Protected themselves from what? What did he find? I asked. She stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, refusing to answer. Then the side doors burst open. Two men, big, silent, wearing Cedar Valley Ridge security jackets, stormed into the hall and moved toward me with deliberate steps. Marcia pointed at me. "Remove him." Her last attempt to regain control. The crowd recoiled, half shocked, half afraid. But before the men reached me, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then the entire hall went black. Screams. Chairs scraping. Someone dropped a glass. In that darkness, something brushed past my shoulder, quick, light, intentional. A voice whispered, "You're next." But it wasn't Marcia. And it wasn't any voice I recognized. The sun rose over Cedar Valley Ridge like nothing had happened, soft light on pine trees, calm wind brushing the cabins, while my entire world still vibrated with the chaos of the night before. Police cars lined the gravel road. Yellow tape stretched between trees. Neighbors clustered at the edges, whispering, pointing, pretending to be concerned while their eyes glittered with morbid curiosity. The HOA clubhouse, once the center of every threat, every lie, every secret, now sat gutted open, windows shattered from Marcia's frantic escape attempt, papers scattered across the floor like a crime scene snowstorm. Inside, an officer handed me a styrofoam cup of coffee. "You did the right thing bringing the evidence in," he said. I nodded, though part of me still felt the sting, the mix of fear, adrenaline, and disbelief at how fast everything had spiraled. "You're lucky you got out of that basement." That's what he didn't say but was thinking. The hidden files, the forged deeds, the surveillance logs. The years of HOA extortion disguised as community management. And the names, dozens of owners driven out just like the previous cabin owner. All orchestrated by Marcia. She'd cracked the moment I dropped the receipts, the bank transfer logs, and the audio recording of her threatening me. And when the police cornered her, she folded fast, rage first, denial second, panic third. Now she was sitting in the back of a sheriff's SUV, wrists cuffed, eyes hollow. The storm from last night had left her hair plastered to her cheeks, mascara streaked, but her voice still carried the same eerie calm as she spoke to an officer through the open door. "You people don't understand," she said. "This isn't just an HOA. This is protection. I was keeping things in order. I was keeping the ridge safe." Safe from what? I wanted to ask. But something in her stare told me I didn't want the full answer. The sheriff walked toward me. A tall, tired-looking man with a deep Western drawl. "Hell of a night," he said. "You moved in at the wrong time." "Or the right time," I said quietly. He huffed a short laugh. "Maybe so. Anyway, we'll be filing charges. Fraud, intimidation, forced entry, maybe more once we dig through those documents." I exhaled slowly, relief mixing with exhaustion. "So, the cabin?" I asked. "It's yours. Legally, cleanly." He paused. "But I'd changed the locks." I didn't tell him I'd already changed them twice. The sheriff nodded toward Marcia. She kept saying something about the council. Some internal HOA committee that doesn't exist on the books. "We're looking into it." A cold ripple slid up my spine. The council. That word had been in the basement files, scribbled in margins, stamped on sealed envelopes, written on the back of a photograph with a circle around my cabin lot number. "She made decisions with them," I said. "Not alone." The sheriff tipped his hat. "Yeah. That's what worries me." By late afternoon, the police cars pulled away. The neighborhood slowly exhaled back into its usual quiet, pretending normalcy had returned. I walked up the hill toward my cabin, the gravel crunching under my boots. A few neighbors stood on their porches, watching. Some nodded politely. Some didn't hide their resentment. One woman, older, gray hair in a loose braid, stepped forward as I passed her gate. "You stirred up a lot," she said softly. "More than you know." I hesitated. "Ma'am, did you know what she was doing?" Her eyes shifted toward the forest that framed the neighborhood. Shadowed. Dense. We all knew something. She paused. Not enough to stop it. Not enough to feel safe speaking up. But we knew. I swallowed. Why didn't anyone leave? Her lips tightened. Leaving isn't as simple as packing a bag here. A chill crept down my neck. What does that mean? She didn't answer. She just gave me the kind of look someone gives before confessing a secret, then deciding it's safer unspoken. Be careful, she whispered. Then she went inside. Back in the cabin, I finally breathed. Really breathed. The air was warmer now. The light softer. The place felt like it was mine for the first time. I walked room to room, touching the walls, checking the windows, making sure the nightmare of last night wasn't waiting in the corners. The loft was still. The kitchen quiet. The hall peaceful. When I reached the living room, I opened the blinds. The view was beautiful, mountains rolling out in layers, sunlight cutting through pine branches, calm and golden. Then I saw it. A white envelope, tucked neatly under a stone in the middle of my porch. Fresh. New. Delivered while I was at the clubhouse. My chest tightened. I stepped outside, the wood boards creaking under me. The evening breeze carried a faint scent of pine and damp earth. Carefully, I opened the envelope. Inside was a single slip of paper. Typed. No handwriting. No signature. Just one sentence. Marcia was not the leader. She was only the mouthpiece. My pulse kicked. Another line was typed at the bottom. We welcome new owners. We expect your cooperation. A symbol was stamped below it, a circle with 3 pine trees inside, identical to the one I saw in the hidden basement files. The council. They weren't gone. They weren't arrested. And they knew exactly where I lived. A cold gust cut across the ridge. Somewhere down the hill, a porch light flickered on, then off. As if signaling. I stood on my porch, the note trembling between my fingers, the forest around me rustling with secrets that hadn't been revealed yet. Marcia had been the threat. But she wasn't the real danger. The ridge wasn't finished with me. Not even close.